Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. In this video, I wanted to review Sade's debut album called Diamond Life, which came out in 1984. This is the first time I featured Sade on my channel. Long time coming. I do really like Sade's music. I've grown up on that. And Sade is actually one of the bands that my father got me into. My father had Diamond Life and also Promise on cassette in the early, when they came out in the middle 80s, and so they were always playing in my household, and I really enjoyed their music, or enjoyed, Sade and their band music. I really consider them a band more than just a lead singer. I really enjoy the percussion and the grooves that they make, and the dance music, and in some ways they're like the perfect kind of lounge backing vocal kind of small club band, if that makes sense. Like, they have a great sound, and they have a lot of great musicians in their band, and I really like their sound, and I've always really liked their albums, but the songs that I generally like the most by Sade is generally the deeper cuts. I'm not a big fan of the singles, and Diamond Life is probably the most single-oriented album, and probably my least favorite of their first four albums. My favorite album is probably Love Deluxe. This one I played so much when it came out in 1992. I also really like Stronger Than Pride. That's probably my second favorite. And then, but I'll review all these. I also have Soldier of Love on CD, and Lovers Rock, which came out in 2000, and this one, Soldier of Love, was 2010. So I'll review all 6 of their albums. I'm anticipating, or I thought I heard that there might be a new Sade album coming out in the near future, but maybe that's just some rumors. But that would be cool. I've always really liked Sade. I have heard Lovers Rock DVD, and I've really always liked them as a band. But it was one of those bands that kind of my dad had a good connection on. We really enjoyed their music, and when I look at the first album, it's probably the weakest album for me, just because there really isn't that many deeper cuts that there is on a lot of the following albums. But band is really good. Percussion, touch of island sound, like I was saying, they always have good grooves. Sade's voice is really nice. Works really well with the music. She's definitely a classy singer. She's classy personality, classy woman for sure. I always kind of had a little bit of a crush on her, to be honest with you. She was super sexy in a lot of videos, for what it's worth. But yeah, Smooth Operator I gave 6 3/4 stars. I think it's a good song. I think it's almost hard to rate a lot of the more popular Sade songs because you've heard them so many times. I always find it really strange when you think of like Smooth Operator, or Your Love Is King, or Hang On To Your Love. Like, some of these iconic songs that they did, how little success they did in the singles chart. Like, a lot of her albums have sold 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 million copies. And then you look at the performance on the singles, and I think she might have had like 3 top 40 songs. And it's strange when you look at the success of the singles on the chart, and it doesn't really correspond with how much they played that song. Like, you would think like Smooth Operator is a top 10 song, or I'm trying to think of the second single off the first single off Promise. I'm blanking on the single of that, but Paradise, for example. Just, you would think some of these songs are like top 10, top 20 songs, but they didn't do too well in the singles chart, even though they were played a lot. And that just kind of shows you how strange sometimes some singles get pushed and some singles don't, as far as in the single chart. And I don't know why that is. From my understanding, it was singles. Well, it wouldn't be in middle 80s. It wouldn't necessarily be singles performance unless they were charting, or they were tracking 45 sales, because by the mid 80s, nobody was really buying 45s. By like 1985, 86, 87, nobody's buying 45s singles. So you would think it'd be radio play and album play that would be a big factor in the singles performance, and maybe videos as well. But maybe her videos didn't get that much play on MTV and stuff like that, as far as in the middle '80s compared to like Madonna and things like that. But it's just strange that a lot of the singles didn't chart that high for Sade, even though they're like, everybody, when you heard a song, you instantly know it's a Sade song. But it's just strange that didn't correlate to single performances, at least for here in America. But then you also look in other countries, and it's strange that they didn't catch on, especially when you consider how many albums they've sold, career-wise, and in particular each album. Just very successful albums. But in some ways, that's kind of, that makes total sense, because Sade is a type of band where you would buy the album and really enjoy it, and maybe you wouldn't go for a 12-inch single. In a strange twist of fate, Sade is, for those that know, or you really like Sade's music, Sade is a highly remixed artist in the house music field. There's a lot of underground house tracks that feature Sade's voice. In fact, there was just one recently. It was like a double pack. There was 2 parts of this particular disco and I guess editors sort of making different versions and house versions of some of the more famous Sade tracks, and that was really successful. But you can go back to even the early '80s and some of the 12-inch tracks of Sade. They were very, very highly regarded tracks that were mixed into and slightly altered into house tracks versions. So if you like house music and you really like Sade, definitely, and you don't know about it, definitely search, and you'll find a lot of house versions of Sade tracks, and a lot of them are still on the underground, certain versions, and it's really hard to get certain copies, and some of them were bootlegs as well. So there's that in there as well. But if you don't know, there's quite a bit of house tracks, and her voice goes great with house music, anyways. But Smooth Operator, again, it's really hard to rate some of these well-known, popular Sade tracks. The only thing I can factor in why I'm not rating some of them a little bit higher is because they aren't necessarily tracks that I go to. They're tracks that are familiar, they're tracks that I like, but they're not tracks that I don't necessarily love. And this album is a perfect example. Smooth Operator, I give 6 3/4. Again, I think they're generally good songs, but it's a little bit hard to rate them personally because they're just songs that I don't go to a lot and play. When I play this album, I don't necessarily go right towards, playing Smooth Operator, Your Love is King, or Hang On to Your Love even. Smooth Operator, again, 6 3/4 stars. Your Love is King, nice ballad, 6.5 stars. Hang On to Your Love, I like a little bit more funky, good groove, smooth. Definitely starts to show off the backing band, and again, I really shouldn't even say backing band because I've been with her for so long. Hang On to Your Love, 7 stars. Great example, Frankie's First Affair. These deeper cuts I always like a little bit more. I don't know why that is. I guess it's just because I played the album so much that I necessarily don't think of the singles as much as being the songs I prefer. Frankie's First Affair, great ballad. Lounge Feel, the sax is nice. 7 1/4 song. It's my second favorite song on the album. Track number 5, When Am I Going to Make a Living? Good song, 6 stars. Cherry Pie, my favorite song on the album. Great groove, keys, the bass line, guitar is really cool. The verses are super smooth. Love Sade's voice on here. Maybe goes on a little bit too long towards the end. Maybe goes the chorus a little bit too much. It's pushing almost 7 minutes on this track, but great song to see live as well. It's one of the early kind of tracks that people. This kind of has I wouldn't say a cult following, but when people think of this album, a lot of people probably his favorite is Cherry Pie. I was thinking of like Cherish the Day, That's a track on Love Deluxe, which is what wasn't necessarily a single, but it's kind of one of those tracks that everybody loves, where you hear it live and everybody really enjoys it live. This is kind of that song, especially when I think of like the Lovers Rock DVD. Cherry Pie is a great version on that live album or that live DVD as well. 7.5 stars, my favorite track on here. Sally, 5.5 stars. It's a good song, but my least favorite on the album. And then closes out with two good songs. I Will Be Your Friend, 6.25 stars, and then Why Can't We Live Together, which I feel like is a cover song, but I'm blanking on who's singing it. I'm not sure if it's Bob Marley or I feel like it's a reggae song. I don't know why that is, but that's what's coming into my mind, anyways. But 6.5 stars on that. I like that a little bit better than the last two. But overall, 59.25 stars divided by 9, 65. I think it's right in between a good and a very good album. But again, one of my lesser favorites. I know I like Love is Stronger Than Pride and Love Deluxe. Those are my favorite two Sade albums. I think Promise I like a little bit better as well. And there's parts of Lover Rock and Soldier of Love that are good too, but it'd be interesting if I was to rank these 6 albums. I think it'd be Love Deluxe, then Stronger Than Pride, then probably Promise. Then I think Lovers Rock I like a little bit better than Diamond Life. It's probably really close, and then Soldier of Love is probably my least favorite. Along with Diamond Life is probably 4th or 5th, so somewhere in there. But definitely Love Deluxe is my favorite. I played that album so much, but yeah, I'm I wouldn't say I'm a closet Sade fan at all, but you know, I've enjoyed playing her albums for 40 years now. You know, it's kind of that connection I have with my father. My father really liked Sade, so it rubbed off on me, but I really like their percussion and their sound, and they have some really good instrumentals as well in their albums. Curious what your thoughts are on Sade or maybe this album. If there's something you'd like me to review, my email is down below. Just send me a message and I'll get back to you. And as always, I really appreciate your time and watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.